Hi, everybody. Welcome. Uh, we're going to talk about some basics of long exposure photography and the usage of several filters, several filter types to achieve the best results. And a lot of you do this as a matter of fact. Some of you are new to this. Um, but let me tell you that I have lots of likes and dislikes of different styles and different scenes of photography. And one of my most favorite endeavors are long exposures and ultra long exposures. All right. And let's do some definitions here, okay? A long exposure is basically any exposure done in camera for longer than 2 or 3 seconds. And when I typically do long exposures, I'm working at 4 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes. Once in a while, I've gone out further, all the way out to 60-minute exposures.
Wow.
And this requires very specialized equipment to enable you to achieve those kind of exposure lengths, those kind of shutter openings that go that long, okay? Some basics that you need to keep in the front of your mind when you're considering long exposure work. There's some things that you have to do with your camera first. You have to decide, of course, first on your subject matter. Things like beaches, waterfalls, Milky Way, star photography, going into the cities between skyscrapers and aiming your camera straight up so that you have the 2 tall buildings and 3 tall buildings surrounding you, and you're kind of looking up this tunnel. You're looking for cloudy skies and the wind blowing and those clouds moving across the sky, and the long exposure tears those clouds apart and make for some very, very wonderful images. One other obscure use of long exposures. Well, a couple of years ago, I traveled to Italy, and we spent 3 or 4 days in Rome. And we went 2 days in a row for guided interior and exterior tours of the Vatican. And the big plaza in front of the Vatican, the Vatican kind of surround, is usually full of hundreds of people walking around. And I wanted a picture of the buildings, but I did not want the picture. I was irritated. So I put the camera on a bench, and I put an ND filter on the camera, and I took a 1 minute exposure. And what happened during that 1 minute is all of those people walking and moving disappeared from the image. Because as they move, they're integrated into the image, and the things that aren't moving take priority to the sensor. The people disappear.
Whoa.
And it works. It works very, very well. So that's a trick for travel photography, but of course it requires a stable platform. A tripod, a little tabletop tripod, a bean bag that you can set on a bench, things like that to hold that camera steady. Now when I travel, I carry a really light stuff travel tripod that folds up to about 14 inches in length. So throw it into a suitcase, yet it'll stand up to about here on me without extending the center tube. But I'm willing to bend down for the ease of viewing and having a tripod small enough and light enough to travel with.
Right.
Plus modern cameras now, I have the LCD displays on the back that you can rotate out or turn around. And that makes it easy too, so that you can set your focus points and look down at the camera rather than having to move down behind the camera. You can be above it and look down on the LCD that's pointed at your face now. Okay, now the basic setups of the camera is you need to set the ISO to the lowest base ISO that the camera offers. On the Sony A7R2 and R3, you can go to ISO 50. On the Fuji cameras that are usually in the range of 100 to 200. A lot of cameras will offer an extended low ISO, and it'll be marked with an L. Never select those, because what it's doing is it's changing the bias points on the light receptors of the sensor. It will give you a lower ISO, but it reduces the dynamic range that the sensor is capable of recording by changing that bias. So you're better off if a 100 is it, choose 100 and go with that, okay?
I think mine's 200.
Okay, then that's what you need to go with. And just accept the fact that you're going to need more ND filter to overcome that higher low ISO, okay?
Okay.
Now, you're also going to want to work at a mid-range aperture in your camera. I suggest f11 or f16 as your starting point. Now, the thing about smaller apertures, bigger numbers, is as those aperture rings close down, they deform, okay? And they're not exactly rounded anymore. And you get something called edge diffraction. As the light passes the edges of the aperture blades, that distorts the light and softens the image slightly. The thing about long exposure photography, the most important thing is having the shutter open for long periods of time. Yes, getting a little bit of diffraction off the aperture blades is a price that you're going to have to pay for that sometimes. But when you're doing a really long exposure of 30 seconds or more, everything's moving anyways. The wind is blowing, the tripod's shaking, things in the subject field are shaking. If you're taking a picture of the pier with the waves and you want to slow the waves down, the waves are striking the pilings of the pier and the pier is shaking. You are not going to notice diffraction based upon your aperture blades when you're shooting long exposures. Now that's going to average out along with the movement of the subject, okay?
Okay.
So don't worry too much about that. Yes, if you can work at f16 or f11, fine. If you have enough ND to do that, great. But if not, don't worry too much about it, because, like I said, everything in the scene field in front of the camera, there's movement in that as well. Okay?
Okay.
So we've covered shutter speed, we have covered aperture, and we've covered ISO. Okay? One last thing. There is a camera setting called long exposure noise reduction. This is something that you're going to hate, but you need to turn it on. Now, the noise reduction is going to start at different shutter speeds dependent upon the camera that you're using. Usually it starts at 30 seconds. Anything up to 30 seconds, the noise reduction isn't going to come on for it. As soon as you hit 31 seconds, it's going to come on. And what it does is, let's say you're taking a 1 minute exposure of 60 seconds. So you're sitting there, you've got everything set up, you've got the perfect exposure, the camera's exposing. It hits 60 seconds and it closes the shutter, right? And you think, oh, the exposure's done. Well, hold your horses here. Not quite true. With long exposure noise reduction on, the camera takes a second picture with the shutter closed on the inside of the camera. And it's called a dark frame exposure. And what it's doing, it's going to take that same exposure inside the camera in the dark for the same length of whatever the external exposure was. So a 60-second exposure turns into a 2-minute exposure. A 4-minute exposure turns into an 8-minute exposure, and on up. Pretty soon, if you're doing sunrise, you'll realize that because of the length of the combined exposures, you're not going to get to take very many shots. So you've got to get the exposure set real quick in the game so that you get one or two really good shots in the camera. Now, what does this long exposure noise reduction do? It takes the dark frame. It's looking for hot pixels in the sensor. Okay, it's looking for noise in the sensor. And after it completes that second dark frame exposure, it sandwiches the real exposure and the dark frame exposure together, and it does a different setting where it subtracts out all of the noise captured in the dark frame exposure from your main picture. And it's going to further help reduce diffraction distortion, noise caused from sensor heat. As sensor heats up, it generates more noise, okay? And it's a very worthwhile thing. I have shot them both ways, without the long exposure noise reduction and with, and I guarantee you I get better results with the long exposure noise reduction turned on. And like I said, it's not going to activate until at least you get to 30 seconds. Some cameras, it's a minute, okay? But it is going to give you better images. Tripod, remote shutter release, unless you have a timer mode. The Fujis offer aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, bulb mode, and timer mode, T mode. Bulb mode is simply, if you put it in bulb mode, you're in full manual now. You set the exposure with the aperture, the ISO, and the shutter speed. And for as long as you hold down the shutter button, the camera stays open and exposing. When you let off the camera button, exposure and closes the shutter. So you need to have a lockable remote shutter release where you press down and push up, and then it locks the shutter button down. And when you want to end the exposure, you unlock it and let it come up, and it stops. Okay? Now, they make really nice, inexpensive remote shutter releases that have an intervalometer built into them. And what this means is it has all the functionality of a remote shutter release, but it also has a bulb mode. You just change modes on one of the control switches on the remote shutter release, and you put it on bulb. You push the shutter button once and release it, and it starts shooting. And then it has a clock on the remote shutter release, and it counts up or it counts down, depending upon the model that you have. All right. And when you get to the exposure you want, you press the shutter button again, and it stops the exposure. Really, really nice. And you can get them wired or wireless. And if you buy a wireless model, you can unplug the wire from the remote receiver that sits in the hot shoe of the camera and plug it in also to the remote shutter release unit that you hold in your hand, and it becomes a wired unit as well in case the batteries die in the receiver. Okay, a really good investment. Now, the other mode, which is a really great mode, is called the T mode or timer mode. A lot of new cameras have them. A lot do not. And basically what it does is when you turn on the T mode, it's going to show you the shutter speed on the LCD panel, and you're going to have to rotate a dial on the camera, and it's going to change the shutter speed. You know, 1 second, 2 seconds, 4 seconds, all the way out to 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and then it's going to change over to minutes. Okay, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. It's going to be even stop values. 4 minutes, 8 minutes, 16 minutes, 32 minutes, okay? So knowing that you can't use the T mode between those values, you simply adjust your aperture to compensate, okay? Because you know that most cameras have the aperture set up in 1/3 stops. So if you need, say, 10-minute exposure, and you're in T mode, you set it for the shutter speed that's closest to the T mode, so 10 minutes, all right, or I'm sorry, 8 minutes instead of 10 minutes. And then you can change the aperture to bring the exposure from 10 minutes down to 8 minutes, which means you're going to open the aperture up a little. You go from f16 down to about f13. Okay, so you want to bring it down 1/3 of a stop. And trust me, 1/3 of a stop change is not going to make much difference. When one stop of shutter speed going from 8 minutes to 16 minutes, 1/3 of the stop is, that's a small amount. So it's not going to make hardly any difference in your overall exposure, okay? And with the T mode, all you do is you press the shutter release on the camera. It's going to go out and it's going to take the picture for that 8 minutes, and then it's going to stop the exposure all on its own. So it means that if the batteries are dead in your remote shutter release, or you forget your remote shutter release, use the T mode, and you're still going to be able to shoot. Okay? Any questions? This is the basic overview of the camera settings, okay? Now, I'm going to share with you, well, let's talk about ND filters first, just the basics. I've pretty much had most every manufacturer's ND filters. I have a bunch of B+W filters, and I always found that they were very reliable, very good filters. They're all screw-on-the-lens filters. They don't make square filters, which is kind of a pain, but that's okay. The cost is relatively expensive. Any kind of dark filter costs more money than any kind of a lighter filter, obviously. And I've had really good luck with them. Now, the thing about the B+Ws is they have a tendency to have a, excuse me, the pine pollen is falling here in vast quantities, and I am allergic to pine pollen. They tend to have a color cast to them. Some people complain that they have a bluish color cast. It's been my experience that the B+W filters have a brownish color cast, which affects your white balance. You can fix this in post-processing, but it's a pain. It's always best to get the correct exposure, the best possible picture in the camera before you ever start post-processing. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the B+W. Now I also have the Lee filter set. I have the 7.5 Lee filters, which are decent filters. And they are the square filters. And the square filters look like these. Okay. And you'll find that when we move up to the square filter system, the costs go up a bit. Not too terribly much more. This is a 10-stop square ND filter. Now, it's not Lee, but the Lee is going to look like this too. The Lee is called the Big Stopper. The Lee has a color cast. It does. It's kind of a bluish color cast that's added to your pictures. And I had always thought that over the years of using these filters, that was just the price you had to pay to have these good ND filters. Well, that's not true. There are other filters, okay? The next set of filters are the Stingray filters. Now, Stingray makes both round, circular, and they make square and rectangular filters. The Stingray filters are very good filters. There's no doubt about it, but they are incredibly expensive. They are probably the most expensive ND filters on the market. Now, let me ask you all a question. Does costing more money mean that you're getting better quality?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Now, don't get me wrong. The Stingrays are very good. Okay. But I was recently approached by somebody who suggested that I try the breakthrough filters. And all I can say to you about the breakthroughs are, oh my God. They are absolutely the best filters I have ever used in my life. They're medium range costs. They cost half of what glass Stingray filters cost. They cost about the same as the Lee filters, okay, and they cost about the same as the maybe a little bit more expensive than the B plus W filters for the round, okay, but they are absolutely color cast free. I mean totally. And I can look through the filters at your computer screen, and that's always a good way to test for color cast, okay. And it is a huge deal. They're made with German shot glass. They're tempered. Most of the Lee filters and most of the Stingray filters are going to come to you on plastic. And plastic is easily scratched. But you say glass filters are easily broken. Well, that's true. If you drop a glass filter on a rock, you're probably going to destroy it. But the breakthrough are tempered glass, so they are harder to damage. And they come with an amazing 25-year warranty on these. Okay? So that's the breakthrough. And
Where do you get those at, Mark?
what?
Where do you get those at?
You can buy them from Amazon. You can buy them from B&H.
Okay.
I suggest that you buy them directly from Breakthrough. Now, there's a reason for that. The price is going to be the same no matter where you buy them. All right. But if you'll bear with me, I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay.
Whoa.
Yep, that's that Hall of Mirrors. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
I'm going to show you the Breakthrough website. Now, Breakthrough makes screw-on round filters. They make a good assortment of the German shot glass ND filters, graduated, as well as solid NDs. Okay, but they make something new called the magnetic system. All right, but I wanted to show you their website because I wanted to show you the cost. A graduated glass filter starts at about 169 and goes up to 220 depending on how they are configured. Now let me click on this, and I'm going to show you some of these. Now the graduated come in three types. They come in what's known as a soft edge graduated ND filter, and what this is, it's lighter here in the middle and darkens as it goes higher, and you can get those in the soft, 2-stop soft or 3-stop soft. All right, I have both a 2 and a 3. See the difference? It's just more darkening. All right, that's one type. Now another type are the hard edge. A hard edge starts out hard. Okay, there's no softness. Compare that to this. See the difference? And where you would use a hard edge is on a scene like the ocean, where there is a hard edge line at the horizon. Then you would put that hard edge right on the horizon. Okay? Now, if you don't want to darken all of the sky, and I'm going to give you examples for this, I suggest you go with the soft. Now, the thing about the soft and the hard, you're going to look through the viewfinder. As you slide this down into the square filter holder, you're going to see it start to darken as this filter moves down into your scene. And you stop moving it when you get the sky the way you want it. Or in the case of a hard edge, that hard edge needs to sit right on the horizon. It's got to sit on the horizon. Okay? A soft edge, no, you don't have to. You can tell it from part of the screen. It's all up to you, okay?
What
Now,
would you recommend we start with, Mark?
what?
What would you recommend that we start with?
I would recommend that you start with one soft.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
All right. And stay away from the hards for now.
Okay.
All right. Then there is a third kind. There is something called a reverse graduated, where it starts dark at the bottom and goes lighter towards the top. Now, can any of you give me an occasion where you see that you might need this filter?
If there's if there's a super small opening, you could possibly use that.
Yes.
Sunrise.
When you got,
Sunrise.
maybe when you've got the horizon and the ground so close together and you need some definition.
Nope. I'm going to show you where you need this. Are you ready for this? Let me bring up another window for you. I'm kind of prepared, not totally. Give me a second here. Let me go to long exposures. All right, now let me go find it. There we go. Now, this is a sunrise shot.
Ah, that's right, sunrise.
Do you remember this?
I do, yes.
Okay. This is what happens when the sun approaches the horizon. You get a bright line of incredible color straight across the horizon. And this is what that reverse grad filter was built to stop.
Okay.
Otherwise, without a reverse grad placed right on here, right here, you are going to get, without this, you're either going to expose for this color band and the rest of the image is going to be dark, or you're going to expose for the rest of the image and this color band is going to be blown out.
Okay.
The reverse grad ND filter was meant to stop this exact occurrence from happening. It's built for sunrise and sunset.
Okay.
That's what it's for. If you're going to shoot sunrise and sunset and you have a blue sky like this with no clouds, a lot of times you'll have clouds fill in the sky, then you won't need this filter. But if it's just a blue sky, you are going to have this filter, or you're not going to be able to take a picture.
Okay, why not? Why wouldn't you use it for if you have clouds? Because of the contrast?
Well, the clouds, if the clouds go all the way down to the horizon, the sun is still going to rise and it's going to shine up on the clouds.
Okay.
But you're not going to get this bright band at the horizon.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
And for that, you would use that soft edge graduated ND filter. And you would slide it down so that it was darker up here and started to lighten down towards the horizon.
Okay.
Okay. And when you do that, you're going to get, here's another example of that brightness. Here the sun's coming up over here. Okay, so this picture had that reverse grad. Okay, I want to show you one up. Let's see, how about this one? Yeah. Here's an example where clouds were over the horizon, and I did not need that reverse grad ND for this shot. Okay. And I have others as well. Okay. And this picture worked perfectly with nothing but the soft edge graduated ND on the sky and a solid ND to slow the water down. Okay.
Stack them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And there's various ways to stack them. Okay. So let's come back here. Okay. Now, you can get solid ND filters to go in the square holder. Okay. So let's go back and just, let's see here. I don't even know if they're going to show them on their website, but let's go look. There we go. Okay, so let's go with 100 millimeter square, which is the normal size. So you can buy a 3-stop, a 6-stop, a 10-stop, and a 15-stop. A 3-stop costs $179. A 15-stop costs $219.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that will use, let me go down here, this adapter. This is the square adapter. Now, if you're not going to use the magnetic round filters, and you're going to go with the squares, then you need to buy a square adapter, okay? And then you also need to buy a lens adapter for the square adapter to go on size filter threads.
Right.
Okay. So here they are. We can get square adapter rings from 49 millimeters up to 86 millimeters. And this is what they look like. And they're very cheap. They're $9.
Yeah.
Okay. Even this is very inexpensive. The holder itself, the X100 holder, there we go, is only $50.
Uh-huh.
That's way less than what Lee's charges. Trust me. Okay. Now, there is a problem with using square ND filters. All right, let's go back and look at those again. Go down to the square, we'll go down to 15 stop. And what we've got is we have the square filter. And because this is so dark, any light leaking through the edges of this will cause your picture to be ruined. And square filters are prone to light leakage. Now, they put a foam gasket on the back of this, but you can only put a dark square filter in the adapter in the closest slot next to the lens. And let me show you that, okay?
So then is there a problem with stacking if that's the case?
Well, you're never going to stack two dark square filters together.
Okay.
All you're going to do is you might stack a 10 stop and a 3 stop.
Okay.
But you can also buy a 15 stop and just not have to worry about it, okay?
Okay.
So let me stop sharing the screen for a second. Oh, I moved it down here. Hi. So let's look at this. Can you see? Let me see if I can. There you go.
Yeah, I can see it.
Now you can see the edges here in the back.
Mm-hmm.
See the slots? As the filter ships, it comes with 3 slots in there. Okay, but it also comes with an expander that gives you 2 more slots for 5. The dark ND filter has to go in the lowest slot next to this metal ring.
Okay.
And on the back of that filter, there is a foam rubber. See it?
I see it.
And this is supposed to stop the light leaks, but it doesn't always work. Placement is critical. You have to get it in there exactly correct. And even then, there's no real guarantee that you're going to get a light, tight fit. Okay.
Okay.
But having said that, you can only get the graduated filters in the squares. So here is my soft edge 2-stop. This is from, as I move it up, see how my face changes?
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's going to look like through the viewfinder. This is from a Breakthrough. It is glass, so it's straight. The plastic has a tendency to warp. Okay. And the only way you can really use these graduated filters is in a square system, because you need to be able to adjust them up and down. So even if you're going to go with the magnetic or the screw-on filters, you still have to have this to go on top of them.
Okay.
Now, if you're going to screw filters onto the end of your lens, you might get by with only screwing on one filter before you start to get vignetting. Okay? Because the filter threads get, as the filters get stacked, they get deeper, and they're going to vignette the corners of your image through your lens. All right? So you might be able to put one filter on the end of the lens, and then you're going to have to get an adapter to screw onto that filter, okay, to hold this. So the way this works, and this is nothing more than just a straight adapter. If you only want this system, you can buy these adapters for $9.
Right.
Okay, it's going to, it goes in like this. It slides in like this and snaps. And then it'll rotate on that. And then if you want to stop the rotation, there's a neural nut here, and then it won't rotate anymore. Okay, this works very well. Okay.
That's to screw something else on.
Yes, but you're screwing something else on that solid ND filter that's on your lens.
My mind is tired.
Right? Hey, it gets better.
Okay.
It gets better. So I'm going to show you the improved magnetic system. All right. That requires a different, thicker adapter, but it's countersunk. Okay. And this screws onto the end of your lens. And then guess what? These are the filters, the magnetic filters for this system. Okay. And it's like this. And what happens?
Ooh, I like that.
Now see the filter? As I turn the ring, the filter will rotate.
Mm-hmm.
It's smooth, it's gear driven, and it's on the outside of the lens, because this is the attachment. This is on the outside. So why do I need that for NDs? Well, you don't. What you need it for is a polarizer. And they have the Breakthrough polarizer, I have to tell you, is the most amazing polarizer I have ever used. I mean, I can look through this and I'm getting 0 color cast. This is the sharpest polarizer filter I have ever seen in my life. Okay? So that's why they put a rotational mechanism in the adapter. And you get one of these for each of your lens sizes. Okay, these are $19.
Okay, but can you use that for ND or no?
Oh, heavens, yes.
Okay, there we go.
Here's a 15-stop ND. Can't see through that one, can you?
No.
Whoa. Okay, now look, I just took my finger in it and I pull it right out. you don't have to take this off and push it off from the back. Just pull it right out. Okay. Now, guess what? The magnetic adapter it goes right into the square adapter. And once I tighten it down the knurl nut, and this is on the back of your lens, you still get the rotation. All
So
right.
you really need them both?
What?
You really need them both?
Well, if you're doing long exposures, yes,
Okay.
because you're going to need an ND filter in here. I wouldn't buy ND filters in the square anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I would buy the magnetics because you're not having to stack them.
Okay.
And these magnetics are guaranteed to never have light leaks. You notice how there's an angle,
Yes.
and there's the opposite angle on the inside of this. As you drop it in, there are no light leaks.
Okay.
But you say, well, I want more than 15 stops. That means I have to stack filters. Well, this company, and they should be paying me, they just really should, is redesigning this system. And they have that unconditional return and the unconditional 15-year warranty. So in June, there's a whole new system coming out. This is going to be a little bit deeper, and the magnetic filters are now going to be stackable. So you can stack the magnetic filters one on top of the other. All right. And then if you need the graduated ND, it's still going to attach. This one is still going to attach. You don't have to replace this.
Okay, so what would you suggest if we want to try this without investing a ton of money that we may have to reinvest in June?
You don't, that's just it. They're going to replace them all.
Oh, okay.
If you buy directly from them, remember I said they are going to notify us in June or July when it's time to send our filters in, and they're going to replace all of these, okay, and they're going to replace all of these,
okay,
with stackable versions at no cost.
Okay.
I like that. All right, and while it will be difficult for me to be without my filters for a week or two, I still have this system. All right, and I have lens adapters for just that system.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the lens adapters in case I wanted to loan this out. Okay, and I can still use my magnetics. All right.
Okay.
Well, I will still be able to use my square filters for doing long exposures. And I would figure that once they say, "Hey, we have them, send them in," it'll take a week or two.
Okay.
Every filter you buy has a etched serial number right here. Okay. And when you get the filter, you have to go online and register your filters because they are serious about the warranty. It's 25 years.
Okay.
All right. So I've shown you the toys. Now, if you want to try their filters, go out and buy just one screw-on ND filter from them.
Okay.
And have it to play with, because it's got the same glass. Now, they have different versions of their glass, X2, X3, X4. When you invest in this, buy the X4 glass. It's by far the better quality filter.
Okay.
Questions? All right, I'm going to share my screen again. All right, I'm going to go back to all products. All right, See here, X4, X2, buy the X4.
Okay.
That's the better quality. Don't buy anything less than that. Their polarizers are amazing. They also have something really cool. Who do you guys like to do Milky Way?
Oh, no.
They have something called the night sky filter.
Ooh, my dad's gonna like that.
Okay, and what it does is it has a filter that filters out the light segment of tungsten light, which is where most light pollution comes from. Okay. See here?
Yeah.
This is without the night filter, and this is with one. Here's the difference. And what it does, they have the details in here somewhere, the nanometer of the light that it filters. It's somewhere in the 500 nanometer range that it filters out. So it just lets I know I found it in here before, but it filters out the most common lights that are used in the cities and towns. So it makes them disappear, and you get just the dark blue sky of the night sky. Okay. Another nice filter. You can spend a fortune on filters. You really can.
No kidding. I thought golf was an expensive sport.
Yeah, but once you have these filters, you have them. And one set of filters will work on all your lenses. All you need to do is buy the right adapter.
Adapters, yeah.
And I strongly suggest going with the magnetic system. I really do. And I am not on Breakthrough's payroll. I get no kickbacks. I get no credit. I am just sharing this with you as a extremely happy customer. Okay?
Okay.
So let's look at some sample images here real quick, okay? And talk about necessary filters. Give me just a second. I'm looking, here we go. I'm looking for a specific image. Now, this image and this image, this is on a boardwalk in Duck in the Outer Banks. And what we had here is we had a sky that was way brighter than the water. Okay, so it caused a major exposure imbalance. And I wanted detail in that sky. I didn't want just a solid gray sky. So what I did is I put a 6-stop magnetic ND filter on the end of my lens, solid. All right. And then I put a 2-stop soft edge graduated. Now, can you see the light, the dark lines the clouds are making as they move across?
Mm-hmm.
Down here on the horizon, there's something here. This, if I didn't have that soft edge graduated ND filter, this would be just solid white. This is why you need a soft edge grad ND.
So even with a 6-stop solid, you would have had all white?
Yes. Yeah. A 6-stop solid, it was to slow the water down and make it mirror surface.
Okay.
All right. Let's see, what was the exposure on this?
Oh, I get it. So the 6-stop solid was for the water.
For the water.
Okay, I got it now. I got you.
And then the soft edge graduated ND filter was to darken the sky so that I could get detail in the clouds.
Okay.
And I moved that filter down into the scene, and I stopped it right about here. And because it was soft edge, you don't get a line from the filter. All right, and I get the wonderful soft water with the metallic reflection in the bright areas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I get detail in the sky. Now, let's talk about a different kind of image. High fog. Okay, now with the fog, you are not going to get any detail in the sky. So we don't need a soft edge graduated ND filter here. In fact, we want the fog to encompass the pier, and the further out the pier we go, the less detail we get. And as we come in and get into the area of lesser amounts of fogs, we start to see more detail. Okay? Now, I believe this one, let me look. This one was 8 minutes and 10 seconds. All right. And I needed a super long exposure here. All right. Because the day I took this image, they were huge waves. They were like 8 to 10 feet. So I needed a really long exposure. So for this one, would you care to guess the value of my solid ND filter?
I don't know, you used a 6-stop on the other one, so.
No, this was 15.
Oh, this is 15.
All right. And then I used nothing in the sky. This was just solid 15. That's all I needed for this. Let's look at another. Okay, this is from last weekend at the workshop. This is the Roanoke Marshes Lighthouse across the sound from Nags Head Island. Now, do you see the detail in the sky?
Yes.
I did not get that by using a solid ND filter for the whole thing. Yet I did use a solid ND to slow the waves down, which were not big here because this is in the sound. I just put a 6-stop on here. All right, a solid ND, 6-stop, and then I put a 2-stop soft graduated ND, and I brought it down to about here. Okay, so that I could still see the detail of the clouds in the sky behind the lighthouse. It's for this type of work that you need that soft edge graduated.
Mark?
Well, I assume that the more often you did this, the better you would get at guessing what you needed.
Absolutely. It all comes with experience. Questions?
Mark, with the Roanoke Lighthouse there, I didn't have that graduated ND filter. So do you not think I can get some of that detail in the clouds with just using the graduated filter in Lightroom?
You would do better off getting to pull those details out by doing this in the raw conversion in Lightroom. Okay. Set the raw file to give you the details in the sky, and don't worry that the surface of the water is going to turn dark and the lighthouse is going to turn dark. In Lightroom or in Photoshop, bring up the or even actually I would do this in the Nik filters.
Okay.
Bring up the brightness of the water and the lighthouse and leave the sky alone. Do the raw conversion to get the data in the sky, and do the brightening of the water in Nik. So yes, you could still get this. Would it be better if you got it in camera with filters? Oh, you bet. Okay.
Okay.
Let's look at another example, another fog shot. This particular shot was 15 minutes. Okay, so as you see, 15 minutes gives us an awful long exposure, and now I'm not getting any light and dark layers in the water where the waves are crashing over sandbars. All of the water is now white. The fog, the pier fades out nicely into the fogs in the distance. All right. The waves are crashing against the pilings, and this pier is shaking, but I'm still getting a nicely sharp area down here. Okay, and that's all I need. Now on this one, I got to see, what did I use for a
Mark,
yes.
I'm gonna have to go.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate your time. Was any of this interesting?
Yes, I found it really interesting,
Okay.
especially with the magnetic ND filters.
Oh my goodness, they are the best thing. Now they won't let you order them now
Uh,
because they're coming out with a new version in a month or so.
That'll be worth the wait.
It'll be worth the wait. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So thank you for attending, Eddie, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So a really long exposure shot can be very pleasing. But for this, I needed I used the 15 stop solid magnetic, and that's all I needed. So I knew I was working with fog. There's not going to be any detail in fog, so I don't need to put a soft edge graduated on the sky because there's nothing there anyways, right?
No, it's just solid white.
Yep, solid white. So you don't need anything but a solid ND. Let me show you another image. Now, I did not do this as a long exposure, okay? But I could have. I could have smoothed the ocean out perfectly smooth. And for this, I probably would have gone for a 4 to 8 minute exposure. So I would have, and this was after the sun had risen. So I would have used a 15 stop solid ND. All right. And what would have happened is the wind is blowing these clouds and contrails around, right? And they would take on a soft edge as they tore across the sky and moved. But for me, I like the grunginess of the contrails in the sky against the contrast and the sharpness of the foreground beach houses. Yeah, I would have liked the ocean to have been still, but you know, the ocean is such a small part of the composition. It's really about this set of stairs and porch and these clouds. All right. But yes, you could have done this in long exposure as well. All right, so let's go to one more. Can you do long exposures in infrared? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. But you need to be aware that most ND filters are not totally opaque to infrared energy. I do not know if the breakthroughs are or not. I will find out the answer to that question. Okay.
So what did you use here?
Well, this was done with, this is an older picture.
Okay.
This was done with the Lee system rather than the breakthrough. And this one had a 15 stop solid ND.
Okay.
And it had the reverse grad on this bright line.
Okay.
And it had a soft grad coming down, stopping about here.
Okay.
So I wanted some detail on the clouds, and I wanted the blue to be blue, not burned out. As I took the exposure, I light painted the tree with a flashlight. Okay, so I could bring out some texture in the bark of the tree. And I believe this one was, This one was 800 seconds.
Wow.
Okay. I have other real long ones as well. I wanted to tear the clouds. I wanted the surf to be smooth, and I was at sunrise, so I had to. Actually, this was sunset, so I put the reverse grad here on the horizon. All right, here's another super long exposure where my main compositional element is the clouds. And what they are is they're moving. I'm looking down south, down the beach, right? And I've got the wet footprints. And the clouds are moving from behind me to the south. So they're moving this way, okay? And as they move during this super long exposure, the clouds soften and tore. And it generates this style of image, all right? And this is with 3 filters again. This is with a reverse grad here. It had a 10-stop ND overall, and it had a soft edge graduated up here. Now, while I did not use the breakthrough on this because it wasn't available then, this I would have much sharper and much clearer color rendition had I. Okay. 240 seconds. Let's see here. This is another super long exposure. But you have to admit, even in daylight, if you have the proper filters, they can be very beautiful, don't you think?
Yes, they're stunning.
All right. Twilight. Purples and pinks and deep blues. Expanding out to a longer exposure on black and white. Waterfalls. Now, for waterfalls, you're just going to use a solid ND filter unless the sky is above the waterfall, and then you're going to want the soft. All right. Typically, waterfalls don't require a super long exposure. 4 or 5 seconds to 15, 20, 30 seconds will give you a nice, warm feeling as that water slowly moves. It looks so slow and peaceful, don't you think?
Yes.
And I actually like it better in black and white than I do in color. But that's just kind of the guy that I am, you know?
It's beautiful.
3 seconds. This was not a terrible long exposure, so I'm still seeing a little bit of ripple here. Another super long exposure. Now this one had to have the graduated ND in the sky because the sky was bright. This was after sunrise. And a 10-stop for the overall scene, okay?
Use the graduated and not the reverse graduated in the sky?
Right. The sun was already up. It'd been up for 20 minutes. It was out of the scene.
Okay.
Okay, this all happens really fast. Infrared, long exposure.
Lord, I just love that stuff.
Okay. How long was this? I didn't have it in my data here. But it had to be at least 10 seconds to get this level of softness in the water over the waterfall.
Did you use a filter on that?
I did. I used a soft edge graduated down to about here because I wanted the blue sky. Otherwise, the sky would have been burned out white.
Okay.
Okay? So, did this give you something to think about?
I'm tired, let's put it that way.
Do you have any other questions for me this evening?
No.
I wish I had seen this before last weekend.
Well,
Yeah, timing.
yeah, timing, but this is why you're here. This is why you're in this group. Okay. We don't have time for this type of instruction at the workshops.
No.
All right. But you're armed with this, and we'll have this video available probably tomorrow evening, posted on the MeWe site. Okay.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Jim Ruff?
I have not, but that doesn't mean anything. I typically don't follow a lot of photographers.
Well, our CNPA group just did something with him. He did a program on time lapse photography, and it was daylight, but what I found that was really interesting that I really never had noticed was the movement of the clouds during the daytime over the mountains.
Oh yeah, they do move.
And see, that's where I'm thinking, I could go to Downton Park, up on the Parkway, where it's an hour and a half from my house, and the clouds move up there just at great speeds.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be really fun because I'm not close to the coast like you are.
Yeah.
But that would be a great option for me, I think.
That, and don't forget about sunrises. You don't need the ocean. How about just a pond for a reflection like this? All right. Now, this was an image that had 3 graduated ND filters on it. All right.
Wow.
I've never seen a sunset like this in my life. And the dynamic range was so wide that you had to have the ND filters, a grad, in order to capture this.
So how did you place them, Mark?
I put the reverse here.
Okay.
All right. I put a 2-stop soft coming in from the bottom and put the edge of it here.
Okay.
All right. And then I put a 3-stop soft on the top coming down to about here, because I didn't want anything burned out in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted all of the color, but yet I needed to light this dock, and I did that with a flashlight. I light painted. All right. And these are the things that we'll learn. We'll learn how to do these. We'll learn how to do these out in the field.
So you carry a flashlight with you when you go out at sunset and sunrise?
Always, always, always. So let me stop this. Let me stop sharing. Let me bring this back. And if I'll walk away, and I will show you the flashlight that I use for light.
You must have one huge camera bag.
It's very heavy. In fact, I took it out of a backpack and put it in a roller just this weekend. This is a flashlight from a company called Coast, C-O-A-S-T. It uses rechargeable batteries in a pellet-like device that you plug a USB cable into the side of it right here. See, that's the charging.
Mhm.
And it charges overnight. I got it, and I got 2 batteries for it. And when you buy it, it comes with an emergency battery holder that holds AA or AAAs. Okay.
I did that last Sunday night too.
Yeah. Now I put a piece of Velcro around it. And by the way, Kevin Adams always sold these. He's a member of CNPA. And he also sells a filter holder that has Velcro on it that goes over this. And then you can buy for like $2 a set of 300 or 400 filters that are pre-cut into small sizes that slide right into the filter, so you can change the colors of your light. All right, now the thing about this flashlight, if I turn it on, it is focusable. So let me go back here to the wall. I can change the focus and I can expand it out, or I can come to a really sharp focus, okay, for light painting. And it's got a low intensity, and then of course the high intensity, okay? And the focus is the important thing, being able to change the width of that beam. See that?
Mhm.
And I have all kinds of flashlights. I have a weakness for them, and I usually buy what are known as technical flashlights that are used for guns. Okay, people that shoot as a hobby, handguns and rifles. They sell special flashlights for those that are ultra bright, and and you can focus them, but they are ungodly expensive. I mean, you'll pay $200 and $300 for one of those because they're 10 times brighter than these. But this battery lasts dang near forever. This thing has been indestructible, and this cost, I think, $50. And it will last the rest of your life, provided you don't lose it. I have 2 of them. I've lost one. But I'm sure it'll show up one day. It's somewhere here at the house, or my grandson absconded with it. I don't know. Maybe I put it in my wife's glove box. I'm an airhead nowadays. But this is what I carry, and this is what I light paint with. Okay.
Well, I've got you here. You talk about you switched out your backpack to a rolling. How do you do that if you're going over any kind of terrain with a rolling backpack? I mean,
I drag it.
Okay.
All right.
I find myself getting bigger and bigger and bigger backpacks to the point where you can't even carry them anymore. They're so heavy.
Yeah, I have a couple backpacks. I have some from like the Airport Express backpacks from Think Tank. Think Tank makes very good backpacks. I have the small and large Peak backpack, the everyday backpack. I really like those. And my medium format digital system, well, you saw it, Susan.
Yeah.
That will fit in the large Peak backpack. But it's really hard for me to carry it because of the damage inside my neck from the surgery. Any pressure on my neck, even a heavy winter coat on the back of the neck, causes me problems. So I'm very, very leery of using backpacks when they get to be really heavy. I just got a new lens for the Fuji GFX 50R medium format camera. I just got a 250 millimeter lens that added about another 6 pounds to my backpack. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So I shifted everything into a roller bag. And I'm going to take that on my next workshop. And I'm getting ready to go to California. And I think a roller bag would just be easier for me through the airports.
Yeah.
And we're going to spend a couple days in Yosemite. I'm taking my 9-year-old grandson with me, who's also a photographer. So anyways, let me stop this broadcast. I appreciate you all coming and hanging out. Hold on a sec.